Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our first of, we hope, of many E Scow webinars hosted by North Sales. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Allan Terhune from the Loft here in Annapolis. Little sidebar, I did grow up sailing E Scows in New Jersey in Toms River when I was a younger sailor, and have spent quite a decent amount of time around the boats, and it's always been fun to see them out there and wish I got more time to do it. But we're really excited to talk here with you guys tonight. We have two amazing speakers here. So first, our in-house star world champion, but he lives in Lake Minnetonka, and he's gonna be spending a lot of time E Scow and hopefully other Scow sailing. Eric Doyle, are you with us here tonight?
I am. Good to see you, Al. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you great. Good to see you too. And we're really excited to announce our newest member of the team, a past national champion, and I believe he's on the E Scow board and definitely a lifelong E Scow sailor from New Jersey. Jeff Bonanni, is he with us here?
Yeah, here I am, guys. Really stoked.
Hey, Jeff. And
Jeff.
Our quick public service announcement here is, even though we're not sailing as much as we would hope to this time, in 2020 and all these things, the class still needs our support. So for all of you who are out there watching this, we ask you to just make sure, if you haven't paid your class dues this year, go to escow.org, pay your class dues. And this goes to crews too. I mean, every little bit matters. These classes need, money and support to keep going. And they do a lot for us just for supporting our events, and quite frankly, it's fun for all of us, and this is where all of our friends are. It's a volunteer organization, so anything that you guys can do to make sure you pay your class dues, and I know the season's generally over, but if you haven't paid for 2020, the classes need our help, so give the E Scow class some support and pay your dues if you haven't yet. But let's dive into it here tonight. So first, we're going to talk to Jeff here a little bit. Here's a photo of him at the 2016 Easterns at Lake Hopatcong, which is in North Jersey, for those of you who don't know. But, Jeff, a little bit talk to us about, this year, we didn't really get to sail that much, and just, why you're glad to be on the team here, and kind of what we're kind of doing here tonight a little bit.
Yeah, I'm number one, really excited to be a part of this. It's a huge opportunity for me to work with, Allan, who I've always had a good working relationship with for a long time. And then with Eric, who's, I kind of view as one of the best sail developers in the world, to see what he's done in the star class. And I think going forward, we have a huge opportunity in the next year with two nationals to kind of do something really, really special, with North Sales. And, I think it's, next year will be a really strong point for the class. So I think that kind of doing these things, and I do a lot of coaching. So, and I try to help do a lot of fleet building and helping people out. And this is a really exciting opportunity for me to, I guess, help people in a more formal way and kind of share my knowledge and kind of pass on what I've learned from a lot of people who kind of showed me the way in this class.
Well, that's cool. And I think what's good about this photo is, it makes us kind of, a little bummed out that we didn't have the season we did wanted to in 2020, but, looking forward already to 2021. And like you said, two nationals, and seeing all of our friends and going to the events. And, it doesn't have to be a huge event, but just getting back out on, the bay if you're from New Jersey or the lakes in the Midwest, and just getting sailing again. And photos like this just get you excited about it. At least does to me anyway. But, I think the goal tonight, we were chatting with you a little bit, and the first kind of webinar here was to pick your brain on just little tips we don't need to get fully involved into, but like sailing the boat upwind is not as easy as it looks. And you were fortunate to share some photos of a training session you did, and we got the boat in different wind ranges and stuff like that. So why don't we just dive right into it? I mean, we got a good photo of you in light air, and, just a couple things that you take away from this photo to share with everyone, of what you see here.
Yeah, sure. So I think I think to kind of preface this conversation, I think one of the things that I look at my experience with this boat is one thing that I think that we do pretty well is, I guess, paying a lot of attention to how powerful tuning the lowers are, and how it can greatly affect the way the back of your leash looks. And, we purposely, in these in this presentation did a lot of shots from the back of the boat to kind of show how tight the lowers are and how that affects the kind of the back, the lower leech, kind of looking from the, let's call it from the main spreader down. In this photo, this is kind of like a just barely raceable conditions, and you can really in this photo see most of that bottom batten, let's call it the back 15 inches of the leech. And that's kind of the way that you're going to generate power out of this boat, is how, if you put a half a turn on that lower, that's really going to round up the back of your sail. So that's one. Then the other factor I would say that what's interesting about this photo relative to the other boats is that we have a fair bit more amount of heel, and that's kind of doing two things for you. One is you just have less wetted surface, and the second is it's putting a little bit of gravity into the top of your sail, and it's a little bit you can stay a little bit more firmly main sheeted and still have a little bit less stall on that top batten. That's kind of one of the my main thing I'm looking for.
So Eric, you've dealt with a ton of boats, and when you see this and people are talking about return on the lower leech and what that does for them, I mean, can you explain a little bit about, in your mind, light air, heavy air, what that does for the main and what effect it has on the boat? Because I think that's pretty important to what Jeff's talking about.
Yeah, I think the way I always approach the condition that I'm sailing is there's really only two things. You're either trying to develop power or you're trying to get rid of power. You're trying to get the boat loaded up. You're trying to get it to its optimum heel angle. E Scow has quite a bit more of a heel angle than say an Etchells or a J70. So when you don't have the boat at maximum, you got to get it there somehow. And you do it through crew weight and through the sail plan. And here it's light enough where you got to do it with both. So, especially in a boat that is pretty easily driven through the water once you get it to the correct heel angle, a lot like a star boat, in that it has a massive amount of sail area relative to the size of the boat. So you're gonna have to be very dynamic throughout the wind range, and at the lower end of the range, the most critical thing is, like Jeff was talking about, powering up the bottom of the sail and getting the lower batten to give you some return. It's not unlike like an Etchells or a J70, where in light air you can see the entire from directly behind the boat, you can see the entire leeward side of the lower batten, and then you're trying to get that exit angle lined up exactly with how the parent wind angle is going off the back of the main, so that you get the most power and drive without too much drag. So that's the trick. And you're doing that through a combination of rig tune. You can see you've got the outhaul pretty eased. We've got the traveler fairly high, and that's probably, very critical as well to loading the boat up, getting the speed, straightening the mast so that we can get the added depth in the sail overall. It's a day that, that's what we want to do. We want the sail to be dynamic with the rig tune, because of the fact that we've only got one main and we've got one jib. It's not like a big boat where it gets windier, we start shifting down jibs or doing something like that. So we got to learn how to use the rig tune to make the sail go throughout the wind range. So in light air, we're quite straight. As the breeze starts coming up, we start bending it more, flattening out the sails. And
so let's talk about that for a second, if you don't mind. So Jeff, in this photo, as you mentioned it before, the lowers are pretty crucial. So how often are you adjusting the lowers? And also then, flip side of that is, talk about the outhaul in this photo, because it looks pretty loose, and how often you adjust that, and what are your triggers to make those adjustments?
Yeah. So I guess I look at, you have your tuning guide, which is really quite accurate. However, it doesn't, you have to kind of account for the stiffness of your mast and, a whole host of other things. So I think that we try not to make big changes. It's quite difficult with having six shrouds on this boat to make a change for a puff that's only going to last, let's call it a minute, right? You can't really adjust 6 shrouds for something like that. So we're constantly looking to kind of, one, start with the out haul, and if the out haul isn't enough, then either easing or tightening a half a turn on the lower. And a half a turn or a turn on the lower has a massive effect on the as Eric said, that how much you can view that bottom batten. So for example, here I would say that this rig tune was probably the loosest setting on the north guide, and it may with a looser out haul. And then the other thing I would note that I didn't mention before is that one thing I'm really big on is having settings for my main sheet. I know that in this condition, I have a main sheet mark on my main sheet, and I can go straight to it and not really think too much about it. Because it's really, I think the amount of stall you have on your top batten could be quite subjective in this boat. So having a good setting where you felt fast with it is probably a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I look at this photo. I mean, the only thing I can think of is how it's really not fair. The crews are getting wet the whole time, and the driver dry. It just seems like it's really not fair. But anyway, let's move to the left, lighten it up a little bit. So it's a little windier here, and I would say this is probably a 10 to 12 knot day or something like that. And you can see the sail plan looks different. So, what are a couple things you specifically do in this condition to be pretty quick? I mean, I would say everyone's not full hiked here yet, but you're starting to get there.
Yeah, we're all really short. They're definitely fully hiked, unfortunately. But I think that one thing that you can really take from this photo is you can't see the jib, but just how firmly leached this mainsail is. That's one, and the other is, I guess, how tight the vang is. You can generally gauge that on how the amount of bend in the boom. Every chance we get, we're trying to pull more vang on, because that's while you may think of it as like a depowering tool, the vang is also it's creating less drag. You're getting a lot of low bend out of the mast with the vang, and you're flattening out that bottom batten angle. It's going to give you more speed forward, and it's going to let the bow be a little more free. It'll give you that opportunity to put the bow down. I think one other thing that I noticed in this photo is that the Traveler is probably down, let's call it like 4 inches roughly. That would be a kind of a common all-purpose setting for this kind of breeze.
Got it. One reminder to everyone is, if you have questions, feel free to put them on the chat, and we'll try and get them out there for all of you who are out there. But Jeff, you touched on the Traveler a little bit, and I mean, how do you decide if you're going to main sheet Traveler adjustments? I mean, how do you make those decisions in this condition? Because it seems pretty important, I would think. Yeah,
good question. I think for me in particular, I don't like the if you think about where the Traveler is situated on the boat, it's between the 2 rudder posts. So really big changes on the let's say fast changes on the Traveler, they tend to push the stern around quite a bit, and it actually washes out the rudder. So generally, I prefer my crew to maybe set it like in this example, it's let's call it 4 inches down, and we might move it slowly between center to 8 inches down, but that 4 inches down will be kind of the median setting. And that going from 4 to 8 inches down would be for kind of like a smaller puff. If we had something like kind of a sharper puff, I'd go straight for the main sheet, and maybe probably an ease on the jib. I personally, there's lots of different ways to do it. I personally don't like the traveler going in and out a ton. I think you kind of work around it with active steering, active jib sheet. It definitely helps the boat to kind of get free in the puffs by kind of just giving a small ease on the jib sheet and then a quick trim back in. But in general, we're kind of getting that traveler kind of locked in and then moving it in a really small range.
Got it.
Hey, Jeff, we had a question in the chat room about, it kind of plays into this whole puffy, changing gear situation about how often do you change the vang? Is your first move the traveler or is your first move the vang? Which one has a greater effect, or how do you think about that?
Oh, the vang for sure. Even in base conditions, we're pulling the vang past slack. So for example, if you went to your full trim for your base conditions, we're pulling it harder than it would. We're taking all the slack out of it and more. Unfortunately, there's not a great way to measure it, but generally, I'm always going for the vang first, no matter what. And I think that in general, if you kind of think of how your boat's sailing, and if you're higher and slower than the boats around you, that's always vang first, no matter what, and then traveler. The vang has to be pretty firm. So
you get a big puff, boat kind of loads up, you're starting to overheel, you pull the vang on hard, pull it firm up, you're already thinking, we got to feather a little bit too much here. Then you probably go to the traveler and ease that down if the puff's going to be sustained and you keep the boat on track.
Yeah, most likely. I mean, I think that if you can get the vang pretty tight and play it in a small range, easing it 6 inches on the line has a pretty large effect on there. So you want to get it relatively snug so that you don't have a lot to pull. Like I don't think you want to, if you're going from 8 to 12 knots, you need to kind of get that preset and then get the travel in your hand to kind of ease it slowly on the onset of the puff. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it does, for sure.
That's helpful.
Yeah, if you're pulling vang at the onset of the puff, it's probably too late.
So we got a video here, same kind of condition that we're playing, and I'll keep playing in a loop. Just talk us through the what you see in the video here. I mean, the one thing that I notice is just the constant angle of heel that you guys must work on. So, I mean, chat with us a little bit about that and why that's so important and how you guys do that with the team, the whole team aspect of it.
Sure. So, I think that this day in particular was really challenging. We had a breeze coming off the land. It was a kind of, early June day, a really kind of wet weather, sharp puffs. So you can see in this video, and you just saw it right there. I guess, again, very firm vang, traveler halfway down to the rudder post, and then kind of adjusting from there with really active steering, and then in the biggest puffs easing the main sheet. And we definitely talk about what a puff looks like in front of us, and we might say, okay, this looks like a traveler only type of dump on the traveler, or it might be just main sheet, for a much larger change. Sometimes just dumping the traveler just isn't enough. Sometimes you have to ease that main sheet. You can see on that really big one right there that the main sheet had to come out, but the main sheet comes right back on as soon as the boat gets settled to reload the boat. And definitely in all of these little puffs, and you can't see it in the video really, but the jib is coming out 2 to 4 inches on each one to kind of let the bow kind of come up to the breeze. And I guess in other boats, people are taught not to steer too much. I think this boat, that angle of heel is so critical. You really can't steer too much. The rudders are so small and so efficient. Like, you want to be steering a lot to keep that angle of heel. Don't be afraid to steer a lot.
So when you guys are sailing like this, I mean, just talk me through it a little bit. I mean, who's calling the puffs? I mean, how does the decisions work on who's doing what in this situation? I mean, E Scow's kind of unique in that it takes 4 good people to sail the boat. So how, like, you know, Puff's coming here, kind of talk us through it real quick, just what the normal conversation might be on your boat and how you move it, you know, how you guys kind of move it along.
Yeah, sure. So on my particular boat, we have, I'm very lucky to have a middle guy who's also a pretty good skipper. And I think that's, you know, that's kind of important, that the person that's trimming your Vang and Traveler, that they have a really good feel for the boat. They should, you know, if they've never driven an E Scow, you should have your Traveler man drive it to get a sense of, you know, how the boat moves through puffs and lulls, so they understand what the boat feels like. But anyway, I think, you know, we have one person, you know, everything is divided into a job, and we have one crew calling pressure. That way everyone is in tune with what's going to happen in the next, let's call it 10 seconds, and then long term. And then I kind of make the call about, I guess, you know, based on what I'm feeling in the boat, if it's going to be Traveler down, or if it's only me on the main sheet. I'm generally dictating that. And I think that, you know, that works really well, because, you know, it's, if you don't have the rudder or the tiller in your hand, it's really tough to tell how much power is in the boat. So I think really good communication is the key here. That's the most important part by far. Getting everyone on the same page.
So Eric, before we move on to the next photo, I mean, one thing that's common with all these one designs is kind of the wrinkles coming off the luff of the main, right? So just talk through in general terms what that means. I mean, I think we see this a lot, but I don't think it gets talked about that often, and what it really means to the main. So just talk a little bit about what's going on at the bottom of the sail, and kind of explain it to everybody, really.
Yeah, we're talking about these horizontal speed wrinkles we have coming off the luff of the main. You know, what we're trying to do is match the bend of the mast to the luff curve of the main, but like I was talking about earlier, throughout the wind range. You know, you can see here that we've got quite a few diagonal wrinkles coming from just below the spreader window and down. So, you know, we've started to put a lot of Vang on in this picture, and we started to bend the mast down low, and we're approaching the point where, you know, the sail is going to run out of luff curve. It's getting as flat as it can without turning inside out. So that's the whole, you know, dynamic scenario we're talking about with going through the wind range, where we're developing power, you know, or we're trying to bleed power off, you know, and we do that primarily with mast bend and outhaul. You know, and on a day that's very puffy, you know, you never want to really sail with the boat underpowered. So, you know, it looks like in this picture there's not a ton of Cunningham on, because you still need to keep the boat powered up through the lulls. So you're kind of gonna pull the Vang on hard, use the Traveler, get the boat kind of surviving through the big puffs, and then when you hit the flat spots, the lulls, you know, you've still got enough power, so you can ease the Vang, straighten the mast up a little bit, and get a little bit of power out of the boat, not having the Cunningham jammed on so hard that the draft stays forward and the helm just goes away and the boat just is underpowered. So I like this look for a puffy day. If it were steady 20 knots, you know, I think you'd see a little bit different look. You'd probably have the Cunningham quite firm, the outhaul as tight as you can get it. You know, the E Scow has a lot of power, and, you know, you're going to have to bleed it off. Travel would be lower, playing the outhaul more. Yeah, more of a, you can see in this picture, there's quite a bit of less vertical curvature to the sail. Looks very even. See how flat.
Oh, we lost Eric there a little bit. He got stuck in cyberspace. So Jeff can jump back in here, but we'll go to the next photo where it's really windy, because I think this is kind of what we were kind of talking about here. I mean, talk to us.
The vertical curvature of the sail.
Oh, you're back. We thought we lost you. But we moved to windy because you started talking about what it would look like when it's windy. So we already moved to the next photo here. So
Oh yeah, it said my internet's unstable. Yeah, here we go. Windier. Now we got it with, yeah. We're talking
So Jeff,
about
just talk us through a little bit here what you do when it's
Cunningham. Nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this is a photo of effectively every single control on this boat maxed out. This is pull everything to the point, of almost breaking. And you can see that the outhaul is to the end of the boom. The Cunningham grommet is probably as low as it's going to go. Full, max amount of tension, max amount of vang. And that's kind of your look. Traveler down to the rudder post. And I think that, the really interesting photo or thing about this photo to me is, we're kind of in E Scow has an unusually large mainsail. It has it's relatively low aspect, has a really long boom. And, in these conditions, in any other, other boats sailing in big wind, and in this photo, relatively, pretty big chop, you would tend to see a lot more twist in a normal boat. I think this boat in particular, like, you can't really go full twist, fully committed to a twisted setup, because you just don't generate enough helm. So right here, this seems to be a kind of a good kind of hybrid between tight leech and twist. And I think, this boat in particular was going really well this day, which is why I wanted to show it. If you start easing the main, if you have the Traveler up a little bit more and maybe more eased on the main sheet, you're going to start to develop lee helm. You're going to have to actively really push the tiller to get the boat to drive upwind effectively.
Well, the other thing, kind of my takeaway in looking at this, is that you can't necessarily ease the main sheet too much because you'll lose too much headstay tension, right? I mean, the boat doesn't have a backstay, so the main sheet's really what's keeping the headstay firm. So you got to be, Traveler in a position where you can keep the main sheeted on, probably adjust the jib to keep the slot open so the main's not luffing, but be able to sheet on hard enough that you keep headstay tension, but not so tight that the boat's not free. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one, absolutely the one consideration is the headstay tension. And I think there's definitely also a point where if you have someone really strong on the vang, they can pull the vang hard enough that you do lose headstay tension. So you kind of have to keep an eye on really on your jib to see kind of, find that maximum point and go there, or not go an inch further.
So in this photo, I mean, it doesn't look like there's any bubble in the luff of the main here. I mean, how far down are you dropping your jib cars to keep that from happening? And what are you considering acceptable, backwind in terms of jib car setting when you're sailing in something like this?
I would say, we try to sail with a very minimal amount of backwind in any condition. Realistically, I think that, there's that little combing nub that everyone knows. That's probably our lowest setting with the car going to that combing. And if you're at full trim and the jib is at that combing and you're getting a lot of backwind, that to me is an indicator that you're in the wrong clue board hole. You need to go down on your clue board. You're getting you're getting too much return on the jib. Okay, you need to flatten it out. Okay, in my mind, when you ease the jib Traveler further than the combing, it gets really hard to point the boat upwind. You start to get a little bit reachy.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So
We had one thing, it's nice looking at the different masts and the pictures. We had a question, we will address it at some point. I know there was a little bit of a problem last summer getting masts for new boats, and we had a friend of mine here from Minnetonka got one, and he has a new Selden spar. Have you had any experience with that at all, Jeff? And they were talking about maybe they're a little stiffer and it took a little different tuning than the standard rig. Can you address that a little bit if you know about anything about it?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. They seem to be, we've put a lot of these photos through SailScan, and to me, it looks like that the Selden rig is a little bit, it's stiffer side to side. So, it doesn't, I guess fore and aft, it isn't all that different. It has a little bit less tip fall off. But I think that, it's not good or bad in my mind. There's
Tune
times
around it
when
enough, you might not have to put as much diamonds on to
right. Yeah,
keep the
exactly.
tip up.
There's times you might want it, times you might not. It depends on your sailing style. And I think that, you can really dial in your own spar, just moving those upper spreaders in and out a hole. If you think your mast is soft side to side, moving them out a hole, raking them fore and aft. It's a really powerful thing to do to find the right balance. I always, I encourage people to take a side view of their mast and, send it to me. I'll look at it and I could tell you kind of, what I think of what your mast is like. Because it's a very important thing to do. And I think that there's not a lot of attention to detail on it.
So Jeff, one of the last photos here, you sent us an array of kind of 3 photos. So just, obviously the conditions are a little different, but, kind of talk to us just about your progression here and kind of what the importance of the lowers do to the rig tuning wise. I mean, I think these photos show it pretty clearly.
Yeah, sure. So I think, so to kind of go through this, I think these photos were taken over maybe an hour. The left being the earliest photo, and the most breeze, and we were kind of in a downtrend on the wind. So we were working through a range on the on our tuning. So you can see that we were pretty nearly maxed out, as tight as we're going to go in this left photo. A fair amount of twist. It was pretty choppy. Probably the most twist you'll ever see. Kind of looser main sheet. Traveler not committed all the way down. Pretty straight batten angle. And I think in this middle photo, and the reason why I wanted to show this is because in my mind, we made an error in tuning here. You can see that it's only a little bit less windy. We're all hiking. But you see, we got a little bit looser on the rig, but we kind of left the lowers alone, so we can pull the vang pretty hard, but it left our lower mast pretty straight. So this kind of stuck us in a really kind of I'd say a high and slow mode. Okay, and you can, in that middle photo, you can see how rounded up the back of the sail is below the spreader. And the key in all of this, and the reason why I mention it, is because if you feel like you're high and slow, your first instinct should be to look at your lower batten. Is my lower batten pointing to windward? In this photo, it is, yes. So the thing that you should do right here, the fastest way to correct this, is to ease a half a turn on the lower. See how the boat feels. If a half a turn does it, do a turn and then stop there, and that would probably get you back to the right balance between uppers and lowers. That's kind of what I think about when I look at these 2 photos. And then as you look at this photo on the right, we're all the way back to base settings, with return from the bottom spreader down, firm vang, 3 people committed to the rail. This was a really high and fast mode, for super firm leech on the mainsail, and pretty fully powered for that condition.
Got it. I mean, it seems to me that you have to pay a lot of attention, because there's no backstay, to the rig tune and the lower tension specifically. And I think you and I talked about, and then one of the next few talks we're going to do, webinars, where we talk more about tuning specifically. But I don't really hear you talking about the uppers or the diamonds as much as talking about the lowers, is what it seems like.
Yeah, it's during a race, it is the fastest way to change your mainsail profile. Like I said earlier, it's during a race, it's really difficult to work through 6 shrouds to get them all in the right place. I think the general trend in tuning is to leave your uppers pretty firm, and I'm firmly in that camp. I sail very tight on everything all the time, and you know the lowers are what really dials you in perfectly for your waves, the amount of how sharp the puffs are, and it can really it's the kind of the perfect fine tune. You don't have to, by any means, with the lowers, stick to firmly to the tuning guide. Like it's really I think a personal preference type of thing.
Got it. Okay. We'll keep moving along here, and I want to one little self supporting infomercial here that we did extend the E Scow deal through fall deal through the end of the month, or through actually November. And just to kind of let everyone know that we're still, obviously we're 100% invested in E Scows and keeping the same products that you guys are used to having. But, as you and I talked about before, you and Eric are really excited to be working on sales. So Eric, why don't you jump in, talk, a little bit of, new news here about the jib for 2021 and what you and Jeff have been working on already, and kind of share that a little bit.
Yeah, like you said, we're still selling the same fast models that have been winning regattas for the past, 10, 20 years. That being said, we were a little bit hamstrung there. We didn't really focus on, didn't really have the go ahead to work on the designs, and now we've got the green light to do that. We're not, we're happy where we are, but we're not satisfied. We're gonna push forward some more. We're gonna, everything's on the table now to look at, to decide if we want to change or not. Right off the bat, we've decided that we're gonna make the jibs a little more durable, and build them out of Dimension PBX cloth, which is a little heavier, has a little more, less stretch in it. So we're gonna offer that for 2021, and then we're gonna do a lot more sailing and some more analysis of where we are, and see where we can go forward from there.
Yeah, so I mean, we're pretty excited about is the AP jib. We're going to do a cloth change, which we kind of heard everyone's talking about that for the last year or so, that they weren't necessarily thrilled with what was there, but they're excited about a new fabric. And Jeff talked about some detailed changes on the tack and the head, kind of a couple things. So you'll probably see some photos and some info out of us here in the next few weeks as we start testing the sail here, and we're pretty excited about it. But the last thing here is, we didn't touch on too much, but we want to leave it for all you guys, is that, we're going to be doing plenty of these webinars, and we want to hear from you on topics. So I know the next topic we're going to get Jeff to weigh in on is downwind. He's been, at least from what I've heard, one of the fastest guys off the wind in the class over the last little bit. And we want to talk to him about, those modings and sails and how the crew works and how to make the boat go. And we're going to do another webinar, I think, on tuning. And I think this is Chautauqua here, this photo looks like. And with super light air, but the boat's still going, and just, we want to bring all this around. So we're really excited to have had this first webinar. So we're going to kind of move it along here, but I want to thank, Jeff for joining the team. We're thrilled to have you, but it was really exciting to have this information and kind of start this dialogue for everyone in the class. Really, it'll be fun to have these, throughout the course of the winter, to keep people engaged in the E Scow. And I think, it's great to have Eric in Minnetonka and be able to help, folks in the Midwest and bring his expertise in the class. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm super excited about, the E Scow team and what we're going to do for next year, and keep supporting the class. I mean, you two have anything you want to throw in there? Or
I'm psyched as well. Happy to have any challenge with more scow sailing, and looking forward to getting out in the water with you guys.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Well, after this year, I'm really excited to see all my E Scow sailing friends. It's really a great family class, and a lot of tradition. And I think everyone really misses seeing each other, and we're all looking forward to competing out on the water.
Yeah, I agree. And it is awesome. So, for everyone out there, send us your feedback. If there's topics you want to hear about, let us know what it is. If you think there's other times that these would be better to host, let us know. But we're really thrilled and looking forward to doing more and staying engaged with the class. And we can't thank you guys enough for coming out. And thanks to Jeff and Eric. And we'll see you all soon. Thank you, guys.
Nice job, Alan.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff.